A teacher is somebody who is literally nurturing a seedling, which is the potentiality in the student. Now, the student, there's something very natural in education, so that if a student is in the right soil, given the right nourishment, knowledge will naturally grow in them, because we all have the potential to know. That it's part of our nature, it's part of our fitrah. And the children are constantly asking questions when they're little, but that spirit of inquiry is very often driven out of them by drill and kill, by certain pedagogical approaches that become very deadening to the soul. And that's why it's very important for the teachers to understand the nature of children, that children are at different stages. This kind of cookie cutter approach to education is very dangerous, because some students are ready for mathematics at a very early age. Other students are not. And if the teacher doesn't recognize that, then what happens is a student will actually think they're dumb or they can't understand it. And then there's a lot, like just mathematics is a really good example of that, because there's a lot of children that get math phobia because math is introduced too early for them. And this is why in traditional education, generally math was not introduced until a child was about 10 or 11 years old. The only thing they did with math was rote memorization, but they did no abstract mathematics, because the mind is generally not ready for it. Mm-hmm. And so like in Mauritania, I'll just give you an example. In Mauritania, they don't do any math till in the traditional madrasa, the mahdara, until they're about 15. And it's tragic, because math is so important. And لِتَعْلَمُوا عَدَدَ السِّنِينَ وَالْحِسَابِ. You know, Allah gave us the heavens. One of the reasons for it is so that we could determine time and learn mathematics. And so math is extremely important, and your mind is divided between a qualitative aspect and quantitative. So we're in the world which is all quantitative, but our perception of the world is qualitative. So we recognize beauty. You cannot quantify beauty. Beauty is experienced. It's a qualitative experience. You can't quantify it. You can't determine how much beauty there is in a great work of art, or on the human face, or in a Persian carpet. But you can experience it. It's qualitative. But you can measure that carpet. That Persian carpet could be measured. You can determine how much red dye was used in it. That's all quantitative. And so human beings have both elements, and a fully educated human being is somebody whose qualitative and quantitative aspects have been realized. The potentialities that inhere within the soul have been realized. And so it's very important for the teacher to understand, because a student the light bulb goes off, and you can see it in their faces when the light bulb goes off. You can see that light and it's quite stunning. And that's why it's wonderful to teach like third and fourth graders, because the intellect is just beginning to come into its maturation, and they're able to discover things and have that wonderful experience of learning something for the first time. It's quite stunning to see that. But if things are introduced too early, then the child shuts down and actually thinks that it's stupid. Brilliant people. I mean, I'll just give you an example of, it's famously noted that they literally thought that Albert Einstein was retarded, that because he was such a slow learner.
Wow.
And I'll give you an example. My own son, who, when he was about, I think 6 years old, he was in a homeschooling but it was part of the school. We were schooling him in home, but they had a person from the state system who came and assessed. Is California. So so they called me into a meeting with my wife, and we went, And they said, your son has a learning disability. And I was like, no, he doesn't. And of course they rolled their eyes at that point. You know, I'm the parent in denial. And they said, no, we've assessed him and he's not where he should be. And I said, first of all, I'm a teacher, and I can tell you that that son of mine is, of my 5 sons, he's the smartest.
SubhanAllah.
And I said, it's not that he has a learning ability, it's that he's ahead of, he's already thinking about things that are beyond what you're trying to, what you think he should be knowing now.
Wow.
I said, those things will click for him, because I know from the questions he asks me that he's thinking at another level. And they just literally thought I was crazy. That child, I would not let them put him into a special, and by the way, they get money for every child they identify as a special needs child. So there's an incentive in these school districts to identify children with learning disabilities. But if you tell a child he has a learning disability, you're going to harm him psychologically. And I did not want that to happen to my son. So I totally refused. So that boy in a high school class of 300 graduated with a 4.0 straight A at a really competitive high school, all Asian and South Asian people. He got into University of Chicago. He did a degree in classics, studied Latin and Greek, and graduated with a stellar GPA from a top American university. But had I listened to them, he might have ended up thinking he was really stupid.
Unbelievable.
And so it's important that people develop at different levels. Some people have their intellectual awakening at the age of 25. So we don't know, because it's just, Allah has made us all different. So some people will show great brilliance early on, and other people, it's very slow development. And then the other thing we know with neuroplasticity, that the brain actually gets more intelligent. So for instance, Sayyidina Umar said, تعلم العربية فإنها تزيد العقل. It will increase intelligence by learning Arabic. And the more you learn, the more intelligent you will become. And so this idea that people are fixed in intelligence is an idea that has been refuted by modern cognitive science.